a liar on like Camino groups for saying that it's easy to find eyes. I mean, yeah. Uh, it is easy, but you need to know where to look. So if you don't know, yeah, you won't find it. You might even be walking in front of it and you don't know it's that you're not seeing it because you know, in your mind, that's not the place where you would normally look for it. And it,
Well, thank you for joining me.
yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My first question, Maria, and I get this a lot from people, and they ask if you really need to know Spanish to walk the Camino de Santiago. I have my own personal opinions, but that I imagine are pretty similar to yours. But what do you say to that to people that are like, do I really need to learn Spanish to do the Camino?
I mean, the answer I think would be it depends. First of all, it depends a lot on what Camino you're doing. Maybe if you're walking the Frances, you can get away with no Spanish because there are more pilgrims, so you're likely to find other pilgrims who speak English. You're more likely to find people along the way who are used to talking to foreign pilgrims, and either they know a little bit of English or, you know, yeah, they are more used to being able to communicate with people who don't speak Spanish. Now, if you choose a different route, things could be very different. You might not find anyone who speaks other language than Spanish. And I've heard people comment, for instance, on the Via de la Plata. I remember seeing a message, oh, I've 300 kilometers seeing, and I haven't found a single English speaker. I'm feeling very lonely. You know, it can be lonely. I mean, even on the Frances, depending on how like where you start, when, and all that. You know, it could happen, but it's less likely. But in other routes, it could happen that you just cannot find English speakers. So apart from being lonely, it also makes things difficult because, you know, finding accommodation, food, never mind if you have an injury, you feel sick, you need to get help. All these things, you know, obviously, if you know a bit of Spanish, will be much easier.
Yeah, and this has been my experience too. Um, yeah, I say to people, sure, if you go on the Camino Frances in a popular time, you're going to meet a lot of other pilgrims whose common language may be English. But in my experience, I remember I was on the Camino Frances just last year, and I remember checking into a place that I was staying, and the woman was shocked that I spoke Spanish, and I think, and she was frankly delighted. And she told me that it's so rare for her to meet pilgrims who do speak Spanish. And
Mhm.
I think that kind of endeared my father. I was talking with my father, and it kind of endeared us to her a little bit. In the morning, we wanted to leave a little earlier than I think she was usually open for breakfast, but she said, "Don't worry, I'll be here anyway." You know, and I don't know that we would have had that same experience had I not been able to communicate with her. How
Yeah, no, I don't think you would have had the same experience. You probably wouldn't have gotten breakfast. I actually, a student, was, you know, doing Spanish with me for a few weeks before his Camino. When he got back home, he said, "Oh my God, this helped me so much." He said there was a night when he got dinner because he could speak Spanish. Basically. So the story was he got to this, I can't remember the town. I don't know if he told me, but it was a very small town where there was only one place serving dinner. The big rush had already finished, so they didn't have much left in the restaurant. It was you know, older couple running it. So they had decided to just close for the night, and they were sitting outside with a couple of friends, just chilling out. So he got there, and he needed dinner. So he asked them in Spanish, like, "Are you open? Can I have dinner?" He said that the lady first kind of confirmed, like, "Okay, can you speak some Spanish?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, no, okay." So she basically brought him into the kitchen, showed him, "Listen, this is what I have left. These are the ingredients I have. So you tell me what you want, and I'll just make something for you with what's available."
Mm.
And he said that, well, first, that was the best dinner he had in the whole Camino. And secondly, yeah, he would have been hungry if he hadn't spoken Spanish.
Mhm,
So,
mhm.
yeah, even
Yeah,
on the Francés, it does help.
it does.
And
It absolutely.
people treat you differently if you make the effort, and people really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I tell people the Spanish people, I mean, I've lived here in Spain for 4 years, are delightful people. I mean, it's like any population, you can't generalize. However, when there's a quote that I love by Nelson Mandela, I even have it like taped here to my computer that says, if you talk to someone in a language they understand, that goes to their head. If you talk to them in their language, that goes to their heart.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just sums up kind of this. Yes, there are definitely roots where, if you don't know Spanish, you're gonna be pretty lonely.
Mm,
But even on these more popular routes where you may meet other English speakers, if you know Spanish, it opens up the world a bit, I feel like, to
mm,
have a bit of a deeper experience. Now, you
yeah.
did say that this guy had worked with you for just a few weeks, and this was one of the things that I found really interesting, Maria, about the work that you do. You have on your website that even just a week or 2 or 3 of working with you to get some Spanish for the Camino helps to enrich that experience, and I think for some people that maybe, took years of Spanish in high school, don't remember anything, they're thinking, "How can you do this in a few weeks?" So can you tell us a little bit about what you do and why it can be helpful with just a few weeks?
For me, the key is to focus on the Spanish you will need. What happens with high school Spanish? You were learning a lot of things that you didn't really need. I mean, you're not going to use in real life. Definitely not on the Camino. So you don't need it. It's not relevant. You forget about it. Um, so if you focus on, well, first, yeah, very basic stuff like greetings and all that, that's already, even if you just know a few greetings and things like that, that already makes you look, better. Um, but then, if you focus on, okay, how can I don't know, ask if there's a bed or a room available? How can I ask about the food? How can I explain if you have some food allergy or something like that? How can I explain I cannot eat this. As this dish says for me to eat,
Mhm,
what's in it? Basic things like that. So you can just focus on that rather than I mean, you can do at a later stage, build on that, and
mhm,
maybe if you want, look at the grammar in more detail and all that. But at least just to get that Spanish that you need to make your experience better, just focus on it. Like Duolingo is fine, but you're learning a lot of vocabulary you never need in a real conversation. And I mean, I've used it to learn other languages, and it has its advantages, but, learning a lot of, I don't know, animals.
yeah.
I'm never going to, go on the Camino and be talking about lions and elephants and giraffes. So focus on what you need. And also, another thing I like to put some emphasis on too is the cultural aspect of it, which the apps don't give you either.
Mhm.
Like English speakers in general, it doesn't matter if you're American, Canadian, British, Irish, Australian, it doesn't matter. Politeness for English speakers relies a lot on saying please and thank you a lot. saying please and thank you a lot in Spain will not make you look more polite. It could actually have the opposite effect, and people could be looking at you like, what's wrong with her or with him? There's something, yeah, not right going on here. Or just people could think that you're rude. You think you've been very polite because you said please and thank you and all that, but you forgot well, you didn't forget, you didn't know. The most important part was to greet the other person first. So things like that, I like to discuss those things too, because yeah, they're important.
Yes.
If in Spain you don't say hi first, it doesn't matter how many times you say please and thank you after you've already been rude, and that's a fact. And people will
Mhm.
think you are rude.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you for those examples because to the cultural things, you're absolutely right. It's not just that you teach the language, but it's also the culture of Spain and some of the culture of the Camino. And I remember there are so many times where people will, I'll see on various things about trying to find food in Spain, and I'm like, no, we do have food here. It's just you're not looking for it at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Or in the
so.
right places,
Mhm.
ice, another thing that comes up a lot, you can't, and people will tell me I'm lying when I say it's easy to find ice in Spain like if you need a larger amount, maybe to ice your knees or something like that, not just an ice cube or two for your drink. And like I've been called a liar on like Camino groups for saying that it's easy to find eyes. I mean, yeah, uh, it is easy, but you need to know where to look. So if you don't know, yeah, you won't find it. You might even be walking in front of it, and you don't know it's that you're not seeing it because in your mind that's not the place where you would normally look for it. And this happened to a friend who is American. She lives in Spain. So she didn't know where to find the eyes for a long time until, she's married to a Spaniard. So, and eventually it's like, oh, really? I never thought to look in here. She would have walked in front of the ice many times
Yeah.
before. And she was living in Spain and she didn't know. So,
And I could
you know,
see many people saying, "But where is it, Maria? Tell us where it is."
that easy as the supermarket.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's funny because, I know my father would remark how here in Spain, oftentimes when you order a drink, one that does come with ice, because not all drinks come with ice, it's one big cube. It's not like in the US, you might have crushed ice or you might have, ice cubes or, but one big cube like that, he just thought that was so interesting. Um, and he said that to me, like, where would I get, if I want more than just this one cube, what can I do? So yeah, it's a matter of knowing little
Yeah.
things like that, cultural things like that. Absolutely. Um, I, I'm all for learning all the basics absolutely before I travel anywhere. But I do have people that, want to just go with, "Oh, I've got Google Translate, that'll be fine." There are some funny things that you have written before about some of the things about Google Translate, and not that it helps in a lot of situations, but can you give us some examples of some things that have that, the one I'm thinking of in particular is like a doggy bag, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it does work. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't use Google Translate and that it's always wrong. I mean, it does do the job a lot. Yeah, there's certain things that it just doesn't get right. The doggy bag, yeah, that's another thing. People asking in groups, oh, is this what happens if, dinner is too much? And is it okay to pack the leftovers? Blah, blah, blah. And people answering, oh, no, no, that's not done in Spain. Someone, yeah, wrote, no, 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 it is not. They don't know doggy bag. And I did check. I went to Google Translate and I put in doggy bag. And what I got was bolsa para perros, which is a literal translation. So someone actually, I guess they used Google Translate, they went to a restaurant, asked for bolsa para perros, and they gave him a bag with random leftovers for their dog. Does that mean we don't think it's not culturally acceptable to bring your leftovers from the restaurant home to eat later? No, but that's not how you ask. You just ask para llevar,
Para llevar. Yes, yes.
and they will pack it for you. You don't even need to, because people were saying, "Oh, bring a container or Ziploc bag or something," because yeah, no, it's not really done and blah blah. You don't even need to carry your own container or anything. They'll pack it for you. By law, they have to. Some of them might charge you a little bit for the container. Some others won't. I mean, that depends on each place, but it's perfectly acceptable to ask. Nobody's going to look at it. Sometimes they'll even ask if they see that you have food left. They
Mhm.
will ask you, "Do you want me to pack that for you?"
Mhm.
But not bolsa para perros, just para llevar.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned the law briefly, but yeah, that was not too long after I moved here. They actually passed a law, and it
Mm,
was to promote, to decrease food waste.
food
Um,
waste, yeah.
so yeah, by law, if you ask to take your food with you, they have to do that.
Yeah.
And I was very, it is common. For example, I'm from the U.S. It's common, to get your food to go, but to me to look at it as part of a bigger thing to not waste food, I was like, oh, I hadn't really thought of it that way, and it was
Mm,
delightful to see that was part of the reasoning behind
mm,
that portion of the law, actually.
mm.
Okay, so I have, let's see here. So you are a native Spaniard. I want to go into a little bit for those people that joined us a little bit late. I'm here with Maria Seco from Spanish for the Camino, and she specifically does just that. She's a native Spaniard who teaches people Spanish they need to know in order to make the most of their experience on the Camino de Santiago. Maria, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, your experience with pilgrims, and how you then came to be doing this? Because it wasn't a path directly from point A to point B.
No, I actually had to go abroad to get to where I am now. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm from Pontevedra, which is on the Portuguese Camino. I'm like 3-day walk from Santiago. And growing up, I didn't really know there was a Camino going through town. There were no yellow arrows or shells or any indication. I never saw a pilgrim, to be honest. When I went to college, I lived in Santiago. I went to college in Santiago, lived there for, I think, 3 years. Pilgrims were not that common either. I mean, I know it's hard to believe now. Any day there are like hundreds, if not thousands of them, but they were just an occasional occurrence. You see the occasional pilgrim. I was like, oh my God, look, a pilgrim. Like something unusual. And so, the Camino, yeah, I knew it was there. It was a thing that some strange people did, but yeah, that was it. And then I moved to Ireland. I was there for 15 years. I was teaching Spanish, which is general Spanish. I always like to ask, why do you want to learn Spanish? What's your motivation? And especially in the last couple of years I lived there, a lot of people would say the Camino. This was people who had already walked, found themselves in a situation where they needed to communicate, and were very frustrated because they didn't know any Spanish. The other people didn't know any English, and they were just getting nowhere. And they wanted to go back to the Camino, so they said, "Okay, before we go back, we must learn something." Or people who were planning their first Camino and said, "Okay, yeah, I think it's a good idea." So, I was like, what's going on here? Like this was when I left, the Camino was not a popular thing. Why are all these people in Ireland going to Spain to walk the Camino? I mean, I don't know. I thought it was strange. And then I moved back, and I noticed the change immediately. I could, well, the first, all the, arrows, shells, all the Camino, signs out there on the streets. And also, I would actually see pilgrims almost on a daily basis. When I want to take my kids to school every day, I would see pilgrims. And I was like, when did this happen? So it must be all these Irish people who were coming to the Spanish lessons. And yeah, you would see some of them were a bit lost, and they didn't speak any Spanish. They wanted to ask, they didn't know how to ask, and all that. So I guess all the pieces started, kind of getting together. And I said, okay, well, why not? Um, teach them Spanish, help them. And yeah, that's really what happened. So I had to go to Ireland first.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your story about how that happened because I thought it was very interesting. People I think there's people now who like dream of living on the Camino de Santiago, and for someone who grew up there and it was like, no, it wasn't a big deal back then.
Yeah.
There was a time for those that walk the Camino now, you wouldn't believe it. But yeah, there was a
Mm,
time when this was just something that once in a while somebody would do, like, and it was extreme to do
yeah.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um I wanted to ask you a little bit about your the you have some great resources on your website for people that are looking to learn some Spanish for the Camino. Some of them are free resources, which gives us a sense of your teaching style and things that you teach people. And I one of them was that I really got a kick out of was 35 Spanish words that every pilgrim should know. And I'm just curious, can you tell us one or two that people might not think about that would be important to know if you're walking the Camino? Like we know hola, we know gracias, but what are some other just to give me one
Well,
or
I would say the greetings, because I see a lot of emphasis on the please and thank you.
two?
And I always say, I mean, nobody will care if you don't say please or thank you. But if you don't say hello, good morning, some sort of greeting, it doesn't matter. I mean, a simple hola is fine. You don't need to make it complicated.
Mhm.
But definitely, I think that is one that many people don't expect, the greetings, because they're like, oh, no, no, you just learn please and thank you. And, like, you're okay. I said, no.
So while we're talking about the hello and goodbye, one of the things that I found super interesting when we first moved here is when people leave, they don't say adios, they say hasta luego.
Yeah.
And that was my husband was very much like, but doesn't that directly mean I'll see you soon? And he's like, I might not see them again. He was trying to do
Yeah.
everything literally, and I was like, that's just what they do here.
Yeah, it does mean see you later. In most cases, you won't see the person again, but adios sounds like very, too dramatic, definitive, like never. I mean, I know I'm exaggerating a bit, but
But yeah.
um, you never know when you'll meet someone again. So,
Yes. It's
I
funny.
mean,
I met someone I was volunteering along the Camino, and a pilgrim came in and she said, yeah, she knows some Spanish and blah, blah, blah. And she said, and I, said that I live here and I'm learning Spanish. She said, I have a question I have to get the answer to. and she said, "What are they saying to me whenever I leave?" She couldn't catch it, and it wasn't like hasta luego. It was like a luego, like oh, like
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing. You do the same thing in English. You don't notice because you're native speakers. So for
exactly.
us, when we're trying to learn English, we have the same issue. Like,
Mhm.
"Well, what did they say?" It's like words just run into each other. So yeah, it might sound like hasta luego, yeah, but it is hasta luego.
And she was just like her eyes lit up. She was like, "That's it. That's it. That's what they're saying." And it was just it was, but it's something I wouldn't have known had I not, had that experience of living here for a bit. So it's one of the
Mhm.
things I like about what you're doing is that, as you've said before, it's not just Spanish. It's also what you do in certain situations, and the please and thank you not being the be all and end all like it is in the
Mm.
US. I mean, that is grilled into us as kids. You always say please and thank you, and if you don't, like somebody might not give you something until you say please. I mean, it's a very big deal.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't work like that in
Yeah.
here, and
Yeah.
like I feel now that after spending 15 years in Ireland that I say please and thank you too much. Uh, sometimes I'm like, am I overdoing? Like probably overthinking it, but sometimes I think I'm overdoing it.
Oh my goodness. I wonder too, what tips you have because there are people that are studying and trying to learn some Spanish, but they feel shy or intimidated to say anything. So do you have experience with people that are a little too nervous to speak up, and what do you recommend?
Well, just think that people will appreciate any effort you make. So even if it's not perfect, even if, yeah, you got something wrong, eh, you know, people don't care. People care that you're making the effort. So try to keep that in your mind. Nobody will judge you negatively for making the effort and maybe not getting it perfectly right. People are going to be happy that you're making the effort. They're going to appreciate your effort. They're going to just, be so happy. I recently saw a video by a comedian. I can't remember his name because I honestly didn't know the guy. Uh, but basically that was his like, oh, Spanish speakers, there's so much, it doesn't matter what you say. It's like comparing, I don't know if I can't remember. I think he was comparing French and Spanish speakers and like, oh, you go to France and if you don't pronounce something perfectly, they might like, I don't understand you. What are you saying? No, no, no. Spanish speakers, he said, his story was like, you go into a hotel and you just say, cabeza, which means head. For anyone listening who doesn't know any Spanish, it doesn't make any sense to go to the reception in a hotel and say cabeza. But he's like, you go there and you say cabeza, and they're all like, yay, yay, bravo. And yeah, basically that's it. It doesn't matter what you say, how you say it. The fact that you're making the effort, that's what counts. And that's what people are going to see, that you're making the effort. So don't be afraid, just give it a go.
I remember when I was first learning Spanish, and Spaniards, when I even just attempted, they would always like encourage me and be like, "Oh, you speak Spanish very well." And I knew very clearly that I did not speak Spanish very well, but I appreciated the sentiment. It still made me feel good.
Yeah.
Now that I speak Spanish better and people say it, I'm like, "Oh, thank I feel it more." But it's just a fascinating thing that from the moment I got here, if I said anything in Spanish, within a couple seconds, they would tell me that I spoke Spanish so well. And it was
Yeah.
just like it's very motivating to keep
Yeah.
you going. Um,
Yeah. Even if you just say hola, people are like, yay, oh, you're doing so well. Well done. Yeah, that's it. So don't be afraid to try, yeah, even if it's just hola when you come into a place and hasta luego when you leave,
yeah, it's
that's
a good
it.
start. And then you have created some. other great resources. And can you tell us a couple of the resources that you've created? For example, well, I'll say the one that I got recently was your food guide, which I loved. You have a lot of great information in there, and I'd highly recommend that people go to your website, which is just Spanish for the Camino .com, and there's a whole list of free resources there. So I love the food guide. What are some of the other things that people can find, both free and otherwise, that could help them in their Spanish learning for the Camino?
Well, you mentioned the basic word. It's like 35. Even if just first 35 words, even if you only know those, as I said, people will appreciate them. The food guide, because that's another thing. I see a lot of questions, and again, people coming from whether it's the US, Canada, UK, anywhere else, really, any other country, with different eating times and times for doing things. So people trying to go and find dinner at maybe 6 p.m. You won't find dinner at 6 p.m. So, yeah, you find that information in there when you can find dinner, or well, food in general, where you can find what kind of food. It's not the same a restaurant as a bar. Bar maybe is not the idea you have of a bar where you only go for drinks. Spanish bar is different. So, things like that, tapas, and, yeah, all those things. What else? I do have a podcast that is for like more intermediate learners. I'm I might do something for beginners soon. I'm working on an idea there. But if your Spanish is already, past that beginner stage, I do have a podcast for intermediate learners. So all the episodes, there are transcripts. Some of them are free, some others you have to get them, or transcripts with vocabulary guide, with some exercises. So that's another thing. But the blog actually has a lot of information. So all the posts include a few Spanish words with the audio, so you know how to pronounce them. You can practice. I created several books for Spanish learners. So the first one was a short novel for beginners. So it's very easy Spanish. It's called Mi Primer Camino de Santiago, my first Camino de Santiago. So it's the story of a woman who decides, okay, I'm going to do the Camino. So it takes her from like the planning stages and all through the Camino until she gets to Santiago. So you have all the vocabulary that you will need. She finds herself in situations that any pilgrim will find themselves, um, maybe getting transport from the airport to wherever they will start walking, finding accommodation for the night, ordering food in a restaurant. Yeah, all those things. And so that's one. This year I published another one. This one again is a bit more advanced, more for intermediate learners, and it's just a compilation of legends. It's a bit of legends, cultural bits, and historical tidbits of the towns along the Portuguese route. So yeah, could be legends. Some of them are directly related to the Camino, St. James. Some others are just local legends. There's no connection to the Camino, but they're. So yeah, I have activity book. So again, for Spanish learners, I think this is suitable for any level of Spanish. Really, all the vocabulary is Camino/travel related. So again, you have all the vocabulary about accommodation, about food, about transport, weather, I don't know, all these things. So like crosswords, word searches, different types. I think there are 10 different types of activities. And in total, there are around 80 activities. And it comes at the end with vocabulary list, all the vocabulary in the book. So I think it's around 200 words.
Okay.
So I mean, it's good whether you're a beginner, you're more advanced, maybe as a
Mhm.
refresher. I mean, it's fun to do anyway. So, um,
And I do
but
wanna be
the
aware I wanna be aware of our time because I
yeah,
said I probably have other things to do or classes to teach or something along those lines. But, I did wanna just, tell people where can they find you? What are your
the
webs
best place is the website, which is SpanishForCamino.com.
Mhm.
So they can, yeah, it's everything is in there. They have
Yeah.
the blog, they can see the podcast, they can see all the books and other courses and different things I've been creating. Yeah, planning to keep adding things in there. So that's the best place.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Maria. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us, your stance on Spanish for the Camino and your business and how you help pilgrims to kind of enrich their experience on the Camino. For those of you that are watching now or later, just so you're aware, next week my guest is Dave Whitson, who's an author, Camino podcaster as well, who has done lots of pilgrimage routes, among other things. So we'll be talking to him. And for those of you that are looking to do a Camino, I just came back from the Camino Inglés and we'll be planning a guided walk. And I know Maria does some guided walks as well on the Camino de Santiago. So if that's something of interest, feel free to inquire with either me or Maria about some guided walk options on the Camino as well. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I will look forward to reading. I'm on your email list, and I always enjoy. I get a laugh out of some of the things that you write about. Some things that people think. Like I think my favorite one lately was like people think that there's no decaf coffee in Spain, and it's
I
because they're
mean, I
actually
don't even know where these things come from. Like, I mean,
yes, yeah,
I mean, most likely because they asked in English
yeah,
and
yeah,
the other
decaf.
person didn't understand.
Yeah,
So, from there, they come to the conclusion that there's no decaf.
exactly. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Maria. I have
Thank
very
you.
much enjoyed our time together, and I wish you the best wherever your Spanish for the Camino journey takes you.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Bye bye.